Before we dig in, a quick thank you to the sponsors ready to grow with the Soil Sisters. Tejas Tonic is the official beverage of the Texas Soil Sisters. We especially love that the hemp for Tejas Tonic is organically farmed in the Texas Hill Country, with farms in both Dripping Springs and Lukenbach, Texas. The Soil Sisters podcast is powered by B&P Electric. Whether you're building, remodeling, installing low-voltage landscape lighting, or in need of an inspection, B&P is your Central Texas electrical contractor. Find links to our sponsors in the podcast show notes or head over to txsoilsisters.co. You're listening to the Soil Sisters podcast, where we dig in on family farming and ranching, regenerative agriculture, healthy living, and planting seeds in our community. We invite you to listen, subscribe, and grow with the Soil Sisters. Hi, y'all. I'm Joanna Newting, joined by my blood, soul, and soil sister, Crystal. Welcome to the show.
Hello, sister.
Very excited about today's guest. We have someone from our neck of the woods in West Texas.
I love it. I love it. A voice from home speaking really powerful truth about all kinds of things. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Amen. Dr. Ben Edwards, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Joanna and Crystal, thank y'all so much for having me.
Absolutely. So Dr. Ben is the founder and CEO of Veritas Medical and Veritas Wellness, based out of Lubbock, Texas. And you have a long family heritage in the medical profession. So I would love just a quick roots story from you, and then we'll dive into the topic at hand.
You bet. Yeah. So my great-great-grandfather was a family physician or general practice physician in Arkansas way back in the 1800s. Both of my granddads were GPs in South and Central Texas, and ultimately in Belton, Texas, where I was born and raised. And they were the two doctors in town. Growing up, I just watched those guys, take care of the whole family, and they could do it all. And they had all kinds of stories from kind of the old days, making all these different kind of house calls, delivering babies in people's homes. They could do surgeries, cradle to grave medicine. And so they were these pillars in the community, deacons in the church and on the school board and city council and all that kind of stuff, as well as the two doctors for the whole town. So I grew up just watching these guys do everything and impact the community in a positive way. And ultimately, as I was in college trying to figure out what to do, I always kind of thought that's what I wanted to do, just help people like they did. I didn't think I was quite smart enough, didn't really want to be in school that long, didn't want to have that much debt coming out. But at the end of the day, that was the call on my life. So I gave into that calling. And I went to UT Houston Medical School. MD Anderson was where I did most of my rotations down there in Houston. It's a great medical center. 2 medical schools there, a nursing school, pharmacy school, lots of hospitals, world-renowned institute to learn about conventional medical management of disease. And then I went to Waco Family Practice for residency, was chief resident there, and they taught doctors how to go out into a small town and do it all. So we could do colonoscopies, do little surgeries, do C-sections, deliver the babies, all that kind of stuff. So that was great. And then my wife, who's from Turkey, Texas, we decided to look out in the West Texas, kind of north central to West Texas area. Went to probably 30 different small towns just going to look around. We'd walk into a little hospital in Coleman or Comanche or Canadian or all over the place, even out to Alpine and Fort Davis. But we prayed on it and felt like the Lord said, go to Post, Garza County, south of Lubbock. They didn't have a doctor in the whole county. So we went there. That was in 2005. Started my first practice there at the county clinic, Garza County Health Clinic, and spent 7 years there. Pretty much living my dream, like my granddad's, making house calls, doing the Friday night football game, team doctor on the sideline, nursing home, county jail, juvenile detention center, just kind of doing everything. So living the dream, and it was great. And raising the kids, we started having babies in residency, and then had 4 babies, 4 kiddos in that 7 years we were there until a divine appointment that opened my eyes to some deeper things, deeper truth about medicine.
So Crystal and I would normally call it an aha moment, but, a divine intervention, if you will, helped you to see the flaws of the conventional medical practice or system. So tell us a little bit about what that was.
Well, I knew nothing growing up, knew nothing, zero, zilch, nada, and wasn't looking to learn anything alternative, quote unquote, or holistic or natural. There wasn't a chiropractor in the town I grew up in that I knew of. I didn't even know what chiropractors did. I didn't know about herbs, supplements. I got 2 hours of nutrition in 4 years of medical school. So I didn't know anything about nutrition, just zero. So, wasn't looking for that. My aha moment, it was more like a real slow aha. I would say now looking back because of pride and arrogance. I can say that now, and I'm not calling all doctors out there prideful and arrogant, but I can see looking back, I think most physicians are under this assumption that turns out to be a wrong assumption. When I graduated UT Houston Medical School, I thought, and especially after residency, I thought, because these were really smart doctors and professors and attending physicians at these institutions. And in Waco in particular, in those days, 20 years ago, those guys and gals that were the attendings were just solid, rock solid, salt of the earth people. Just love people, love Jesus, love the truth. Anyways, the assumption I was under was I just learned everything there was to know. To go to Garza County Health Clinic and help people. They taught me everything, basically. And so if a little old lady in Garza County would bring in a little newsletter from some naturopathic chiropractor, holistic newsletter talking about some kind of herb or this thing or that thing, and, I'd be polite about it. But basically I'd say, Miss Smith, if that were true, if that really worked, then they would have taught me that in med school. So since they didn't teach me that, there's no way that could work. That's how naive I was / arrogant. But that's to my aha moment. And the reason it took so long, because you get into this just cognitive dissonance thing where you just can't believe this thing that's the truth, that's outside of what I was taught and raised. I went to med school for the right reason. I think all those people that were teaching were like good-hearted people. But anyways, the aha moment was my nurse practitioner at the time, because we were really busy. We got super busy at Garza County. Just real quick, kind of set the stage here. So we got so busy, we got into the 95th percentile of all clinics in America on the business side, on the money side. So volume. And that's how you're successful, quote unquote, in a county clinic or any clinic. It's based on volume because the payers don't pay super good per visit. So you got to do a lot of visits. And we did 40 to 50 a day. And I did procedures too. And you get paid more for procedures, which is something you do with your hands. So we learned how to do that, did it well. I had a great team to help me do that well. And we got ranked in this real high ranking on the business side. And then we got noticed by Texas Monthly, did an article on us, and then the Washington Post picked that up, put us on the front page. So now we're famous. And they built a brand new clinic for us because we were so efficient in our 7-minute visits. We actually got a lot of money going for the clinic. The tax money was coming in. They weren't having to pull from that because we're self-sufficient. We're making more than our expenses, so we had profit. So the tax money just sat there and built up. So at the end of the day, $1 million brand new clinic. It was awesome and paid for, done, paid for, no debt. $1 million in their healthcare district savings account and front page of the Washington Post. So I'm telling you, the dream job, it's going smooth and perfect for the one caveat, the one asterisk on that, one going smooth and perfect for the patients. They thought it was, everybody was happy with what I was doing, but nobody was getting well.
Yeah.
They were sick. I was writing the prescriptions. It would manage them okay. Their asthma would be sort of tamped down and managed as long as they stayed on their inhaler. Their blood sugars would be pretty well managed, sort of, as long as they stayed on their meds. But eventually it wouldn't be, and they'd need more meds, higher dose. Now a second one, now a third pill for diabetes. Same thing with blood pressure, same thing with acid reflux. Over time, more and more and more, and higher doses and more of it. And then eventually insulin and eventually another. Anyways, so that part, the health outcomes, not super great, but everything else was great. But then my nurse practitioner, that I had hired to help me because we were so busy. He went to a bed and breakfast one weekend up in Amarillo, and my nurse prac had celiac disease at the time, which is an incurable autoimmune disease. I'll put incurable in quotes too. And he avoided wheat like the plague. If a drug rep would bring a breakfast burrito, he wouldn't just scrape the eggs off the tortilla and eat just the eggs because of cross-contamination. So, he was very, very careful about not being exposed to gluten. Gluten or wheat will trigger your celiac disease to flare and you'll have symptoms. So anyways, he goes to this bed and breakfast for a getaway weekend with his wife, tells the lady at the bed and breakfast he needs a gluten-free pancake because he has celiac. And she said, okay, I can do that for you. But by the way, there's a doctor here. His office is actually right here in the bed and breakfast. You could talk to him if you want, but he could cure you of that, which my nurse practitioner laughed at that because you don't cure celiac nor anything else. You manage it. But long story short, because this could get really long, but to be polite, because she kept pestering him. He blew her off. She kept coming back. And finally he said, fine, let me talk to him just to kind of get it over with so I can get on about my weekend. He ended up spending about 4 or 5 hours with this doctor. And that doctor so moved and transformed him by bringing some truth that my nurse prac walked out of there just like, wow, I think I'm going to try this. This guy's a great salesman. And he convinced me. And it was stuff such as, it just makes sense. Okay. But this was a big one. Hydrochloric acid. That's our stomach acid. So when you eat food, if you just ate your lunch, it's 1:30. So maybe y'all just ate. What should happen is your proton pumps, so these are the acid pumps in the stomach, should engage when you're chewing on that food. And really it starts when you just start to look at the food and smell the food. But they engage and they secrete stomach acid into your stomach to get the pH down to a 1 to 2. That's battery acid level. And what acid does to proteins are amino acids all stacked together to make a protein. Well, hydrochloric acid or even battery acid chops up these bonds, these amino acid bonds, down to just, so you break protein down to amino acid building blocks. That's what stomach acid does. And the doctor told that nurse prac, hey, gluten's a protein. Your stomach acid should be chopping all that up. And there's 94 different strains of bacteria that should be in your microbiome in your gut, the soil of your gut, should be out of trillions. We know of 94 that break down gluten in particular. So between your stomach acid up high and then the microbes down low, you should really be dissolving this protein, gluten, down to building block amino acids and not respond or react to it. So it was stuff like that he convinced my nurse prac to try. So my nurse prac did try these things over the next 3 to 4 months. He didn't tell me he was doing this, but he was. And I had noticed in those 3 or 4 months that he just seemed to look healthier, more vibrant in his color, his mood, he trimmed up a little bit, his energy, his eyes. He just seemed brighter and happier and just healthy. And he told me he was cycling at the time and said he was getting his personal record in cycling. And then he dropped it on me about 4 months in. He said, hey, doc, I've been meaning to tell you, but I've been doing this thing to heal my gut, and I can eat wheat now, and it doesn't bother me at all. Like, I'm cured. And of course, I'm like, what are you talking about? Is it April Fool's Day? And he's like, no, I'm telling you, my gut, it can handle it. And I didn't believe him. I said, you don't cure celiac. And he went and got a burrito, actually, that a drug rep had brought that day, and it brought it right back to the nurse's station, started eating it right in front of me with that wheat tortilla, gluten. And then he got a hamburger from Holly's Burger Joint in Post at lunch. And then he got Slayton Bakery cookies from a drug rep that afternoon. 3 different glutens in one day. And he was basically like in my face, what do you think about this? And I'm thinking, you're crazy. You're going to be so sick. Because, he would get sick if he accidentally got contaminated. He got gut cramp, bloody diarrhea, sick, wouldn't come to work the next day. And that's what I was thinking. He's going to call in tomorrow. And he didn't call in. He was fine. And the next day he was fine. The next day he was fine. So I was stuck in that moment with, first I thought he's misdiagnosed. He doesn't have celiac. And I called his dad, who's a doctor who was involved in the diagnostic procedure years ago, and he had it full blown, had a scope, had the biopsy. He was a true diagnosis, so had to mark that off. And I thought, well, maybe it's a delayed reaction. He's going to start having bloody diarrhea in a day or 2 or 3, and he didn't. He was fine. So then I thought, well, maybe just like this is a one-off miracle cure kind of thing. God just somehow miracle cured him. But my nurse practice saying, no, doc, I'm telling you, I brought order to my physiology, and it is now operating like God designed it to operate. So the aha moment, that was a piece of it where I thought, man, what am I going to do with my next celiac patient that walks in the door? Am I going to hide this testimony, which my medical education says to do that, actually, evidence-based medicine? The lowest form of evidence on the evidence-based medicine pyramid, which, some doctors would consider it not even evidence. But officially it's on there. It's just the very lowest form of evidence. So you don't give it much credence. It's called an anecdotal report. And that's what that was. That was one man's testimony. And I'm pretty much supposed to ignore that. But it was so powerful. So to me personally, that was my moment of, hey, my next celiac patient, am I going to just say eat gluten-free the rest of your life? That's what medical school taught me. Or am I going to give them the option and just be honest and say, med school taught me eat gluten-free the rest of your life. That's what the gastroenterologist would tell you, and that's what I'm telling you. But if you want to go talk to my nurse prac, because he had that diagnosis and now he can eat wheat and he's okay. Could have been a one-time deal. Who knows, may not work for you. But if you want to talk to him, that's an option. So I decided morally and ethically obligated to give that option. So I did. And that really opened up the can of worms because he's a nurse prac under my medical license, under my authority by the Texas Medical Board. I needed to know what he was going to be saying in that room behind those closed doors to that celiac patient. And plus, he was telling me, my nurse prac was saying, doc, it's not just celiac. It's diabetes. It's hypertension. It's everything, asthma, depression, fibromyalgia, lupus. He was so convinced. So anyways, I thought I better call this doctor up in Amarillo and find out what did he teach? What did he tell him? What's he doing? Well, first, who is this guy and what's his credentials? And, just grill him a little bit. So I did. And that began a year journey of little aha moments, along the way. But this guy he pretty much started hammering me with the truth big time. And he said, Ben, there's no alternative to the truth. This alternative medicine that you keep saying the word alternative, which he was reminding me that, you are on the last place team. In case you didn't know, you are. Someone needs to tell you that your protocols, your standard of care, which I understand you're obligated by Texas Medical Board rule to offer, which we still do, because that's the law. But those standard of care protocols have put you in dead last place in health outcomes of all the countries in the world, industrialized world. You're in dead last place and you're getting worse every year. You're not even getting scratching into second to last place, not even getting close to it. And you're spending more money to do it anyways. But one big aha moment was when he said, there's no such thing as diseases, Ben. If you weren't born with it, you most likely don't need to keep it. These chronic diseases aren't diseases, they're consequences. He said if they were diseases, then they would have been around 120 years ago, and they weren't. Heart disease, your number one killer of Americans, 600,000 plus will die this year, last year, next year, every year for a long time now. It's been number one. Wasn't even a thing. Heart attacks did not exist pre-1912. There was one heart attack in this entire country, first heart attack ever reported, myocardial infarction, ever recorded in the medical literature in this country, 1912. So he said, it ain't your genes. Your great-great-granddads who were before 1912, they didn't have heart attacks. Cancer was so rare, every single case got published. Lung cancer at the turn of the century, that's true. And just all the autism, 1934, first case ever diagnosed. And, at first you try to they just didn't have good diagnostic techniques. Well, they didn't live long enough to get heart attacks in 1912 because life expectancy was 30. Asterisk on that. If you made it past your fifth birthday in 1900, then you lived to be 80. It's that fifth birthday that was a challenge to get to. And 50% of babies didn't make it to that fifth birthday. So that skewed that data. If you had two twins, one's going to be dead by 5 years old, the other one lives to 80. The average of that's about 40. So when you Google life expectancy 1900, you might get 36 or 40 or whatever. That's totally skewed because of the high infant mortality rate. That's a whole nother probably talk we don't have time for, but basically that drop, 99% drop by 1950, those babies aren't dying anymore. Vaccines and antibiotics weren't the source of that. Vaccines hadn't even rolled out yet. Harvard, Mayo, Hopkins have published on that. It's clear it was sanitation, refrigeration, nutrition, all that hygiene stuff. We can get into that if you want to. But this doctor kept saying they're all consequences of modern living, eating, stress, all that. And your ancestors lived to be 80 and they didn't have these diseases. And, when he said there's no such thing as diseases, I remember till the day I die, I'll remember this. I was standing at the nurse's station at Garza County Health Clinic. My nurse would print off my schedule for the day and I'd see 40 to 50. And so there's this list of all these patients right here and their diagnoses. I'd seen them. This was at the end of the day. So I just looked down at that paper and I said, oh yeah, no such thing as diseases. What about? And I just read every single disease I just treated that day. Diabetes, hypertension, asthma, ADD, all those things. And he said, no. Their consequences, go home tonight. He said, rip that list off, take it home tonight, and do a Google search with lupus and inflammation, hypertension and inflammation, heart disease, inflammation, cancer, inflammation. He said, put inflammation next to every one of those quote unquote diseases, and you'll see a connection. And then he said, be a good doctor and figure out why is this common denominator called inflammation? Why is it there for all these chronic diseases? Dig. Be a good detective. Dig deeper. Where's inflammation coming from? He said, do you realize you're just treating the smoke from the fire? That's all pharmaceuticals are doing. High blood sugar is a symptom. High blood pressure is a symptom. A tumor is a symptom. Blockage, buildup in the coronary arteries, symptom. Smoke from a fire. And all you're doing is opening the windows, the doors, the fans, clearing the smoke out of your living room. And then you're sitting right back down on the couch and watching TV all night while the fire's still burning in your kitchen. It's going to burn your house down. You're going to die early. You're going to suffer, and you're going to spend a lot of money because you didn't go in there and put the fire out. He would say stuff like this, and like part of it would resonate with that, common sense part of your spirit man part, I'd say, of truth. But then your intellectual kicks in as a doctor, and your pride and your arrogance and that cognitive dissonance saying like, there's no way this could be true. And then when
the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you spent on medical school.
Yes. And then he said, type 2 diabetes, totally reversible, which these days, I think people kind of know that. There's so many biohackers and podcasts out there. But in 2011, 2012, he said, type 2 diabetes, totally reversible. I was like, what in the world are you talking about? There's no way that's true. If that were true, my endocrinology professor at UT Houston would have taught me. My really sweet, kind, loves Jesus, attending physicians in Waco would have taught me that. They're good people. They can't be lying to. They can't be, part of the big scheme to keep people down and sick.
They can't be part of the they.
Yeah.
They're not they.
So how could this one guy in Amarillo be right and all these smart doctors be wrong? The American Diabetes Association. If what this one doctor in Amarillo is saying is true, why doesn't the American Diabetes Association website? Because it says to this day, I think, I haven't looked lately, but I did a few months back, it still had it. American Diabetes Association. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic progressive disease. It can be managed for a little bit with diet and exercise, but you'll need medication and eventually insulin. Chronic meaning forever, progressive, slowly worse over time, and disease is disease. Where the guy in Amarillo is saying, nope, totally reversible. And then he said, watch this guy on YouTube. And he told me this guy's name, reverses his own diabetes. And I got on YouTube that night and I watched it. Till late into the night, I was watching this guy, and I woke up my wife in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. Jamie, this guy just reverses type 2 diabetes. It's here on YouTube. And he's not even a doctor. He's an engineer. How could this be? Because half of Garza County's type 2 diabetic, and my patients were. The other half are pre-diabetic. I diagnosed a 7-year-old in Garza County with type 2 diabetes back in the day. And if you're diabetic, you increase your risk for heart attack, stroke, cancer, Alzheimer's. So if you can do that one thing, reverse diabetes, and you just decrease risk of all these things so much. So that's powerful. So that was a big aha moment. And the ultimate aha moment, after about a year of going back and forth with him, couldn't believe it, but kind of was, but then would go back, no, this can't be. And he was tired of it too. He's like, I'm done arguing with you. Just send me your 10 sickest patients and I'll just show you. And he said, now the sickest, He said the ones that walk in when you see them on your schedule that day, or you notice, through the little reception area, you see Miss Smith walk in and she's got fibromyalgia or lupus or whatever, and you've already referred her to all the specialists. You've tried everything you have. The specialists have tried it all. There's nothing left. You don't know what to do. Like, you cringe when she walks in because you have nothing for her. Send those to me. And I had plenty of those. And these are my patients. 7 years I took care of these people. I wrote most of those prescriptions. I made those referrals to the referral centers, even to UT Southwestern, the big smart ones in Dallas. So I knew these people. I went to church with them, all that, part of the community. They weren't lying. They were really sick. And they all came back after, 3, 4, 5 months. Every single one of them, a worst lupus case ever, worst fibromyalgia, worst depression, worst diabetic who wouldn't get on insulin but needed it, refused it. This chronic prostatitis, infection of the prostate, just wouldn't go away. He'd seen 3 urologists over a year's period of time, couldn't get it to clear. A really bad chronic urticaria where you get hives that are real, real itchy. And this lady was a waitress at the restaurant at Choppa's and Post, and she would just scratch and claw herself in her sleep till she bled. And she'd seen allergists, immunologists, internists. So these really, really sick people, and they all came back well, off their meds, no more symptoms, no more disease. That 74-year-old, 300-plus pound diabetic former coach on 9 medications, sitting in his recliner waiting to die because his peripheral neuropathy is so bad, his energy is so low, and he wouldn't get on insulin shots because he was scared of needles. He came back, blood sugar normal, A1C normal, off his meds, no insulin, but off his oral meds for diabetes. And of the 9 meds, he was down to half of one blood pressure pill. And he lost a bunch of weight and he had his life back. He was out in the garden, picking his garden with his grandkids. And he came back to tell me, thank you for sending me that guy because I got my life back. So that was the biggest part of aha moment for me, seeing those 10 people get well. I've never, ever saw patients get well like that. And of course now, no, it's because I wasn't trained to see chronic disease reversal. I was trained for chronic disease management. And the audience, you can ask your doctor and he'll tell you, were you trained to manage asthma or reverse asthma? Trained to manage diabetes or reverse it? Hypertension, manage it or reverse it? And we were taught to manage. So doctors, I think, assume if there was a way to reverse it, they would have taught us that because there's so much suffering. If you could reverse that and cure that, that'd be awesome. They would have taught us that. So there's no way you could. So that's where we're at. Modern doctors, modern United States trained physicians just, I think, are under the same assumption I was when I left med school, that we would have been taught this if it were true.
Well, I appreciate so much you saying that. My partner was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer 5-6 years ago, and we had been already doing every natural thing. And so she did go and get chemo, but we literally said, give us the least amount. We are literally just trying to get over this hump. No invasive. We didn't want a big biopsy, which fortunately it didn't have to go internally to get a biopsy because we knew that wasn't a good idea. And we did all the things to support her flushing out that chemo the moment that she did it. So we had drink a gallon of water, juicing celery, lots of fresh juices, clean food. And she, from the moment she started getting the chemo, she started gaining weight, feeling better, getting healthy. Like the whole office is just watching her getting healthier and healthier during chemo. And they could not believe it. And her doctor would not ask. Mm-hmm. Literally, yeah. And still to this day, they know she's working out. They know she's healthy. They told her she wouldn't do all kinds of things. Like she had vertebrae crushed in her back, that she would never be able to stand up straight or not be in pain. And just all the things that they said is totally not true. And she was that anecdotal evidence for them. And they are literally just trying to keep her in the system. And yeah. It is, it's heartbreaking because I just feel like how many people could benefit from this, mm-hmm. that you could share this knowledge with them, and they're not doing it. So you, sir, are someone that we really have needed in this space, because there is so much to be learned and to be known and shared with other people while you're wearing that white coat, because it literally just gives you a level of credibility. When I was 6 years old, my grandmother told me about a placebo, a sugar pill. And so when I asked her what that was, and she told me, I said, then why do we take medicine? Like, if I can just take a sugar pill and my mind will make it better. Like, I knew that at 6 years old. So I went through my whole life not really needing, buying into, or trying. I didn't want to do medicine because I knew somehow I could fix it with my mind. So I just love hearing you say all these things like Harvard studies and stuff. Because it is something that I've just known. And when you just know something, people don't totally respect that. So anyway, I just am sitting over here, shaking my head, nodding my head with a ridiculous grin on my face, because I know what you're saying, and it means so much to me to hear you say it.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we've been, as physicians, we get trained up even in first grade. I mean, we're trained to make all A's on the first 6 weeks report card, and then you get rewarded for that performance. So then you want to do it again and again, and your self-worth and value get wrapped up in being number one and all A's. And you go through your whole schooling, you got to be number one. And hey, you're the smartest, best, whatever. You can get into the best college. And now you can be number one, get into the best med schools, like the top thing to go to. So you're just, for years, you're just trained like this. And that the system is all set up, for everybody's good. And so it's just a long-term mindset. Someone called brainwashing, but it's really, really hard and almost impossible for a doctor to come out of that. And especially when it's something like cancer. And I agree 100%. Patients that we see that integrate in integrative, take the best from all the worlds that you can find. We had a stage 4 ovarian cancer lady. She elected to do chemo. Well, but she was doing a lot of integrative things, including high dose vitamin C IVs. And there is a lot of published data on that. Most oncologists don't understand vitamin C under the dose of 50 grams, not milligrams, but grams, but under 50 grams IV is an antioxidant that actually counteracts the effects of the pro-oxidative chemotherapy. But above 50 grams, you get to 75, 100 grams, 150 grams. It's pro-oxidative and actually, helps. But anyways, there's all these nuanced things that these naturopathic oncologists understand and integrate in together. But the stage 4 ovarian cancer did the same thing. She breezed through chemo, actually, got healthier all along the way. And stage 4 ovarian, that's incurable per her oncologist. Mm-hmm. And she's disease-free and has been for years now. And I had the same thought, man, if every oncologist could have just been trained and we incorporate this at every cancer center in America, it would be amazing. But there are a lot of interests that would be opposed to that, unfortunately. And that, it's a hard thing to say, and people just can't believe that. A lot of people can now after COVID, but it's hard to believe that there could be that kind of evil that would keep something beneficial from the people. And of course, the doctors, I'm not calling them evil. They're just thinking, no, there's no way that works, or there would have been a randomized control trial coming out of NIH that would have proved that worked. Well, if you really start digging into that and the corruption, whenever they do try to do a trial, like on Laetrile, vitamin B17, or some of these other things, Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez comes to mind, and his natural cancer therapy and the way his trial at Columbia was just totally, corrupted. So it's a tough situation, but yeah, I think it's changing. More eyes are opening. And there's an opportunity right now in the political atmosphere that we're in that maybe we can see some changes, and we are seeing some.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I do want to stay there for a minute and talk about this. So when you moved from chronic disease management into root cause resolution as your mindset and game plan as a doctor, what happened to you within the medical establishment when you started making these changes, and how have you taken that and now thrived with Veritas Medical?
Yeah. So I got real excited. Of course, after those 10 patients got well, these are my own patients. I was just pumped. And at that point, I'm like, I'm all in because these people got well. That's what I went to school to do. Just because I didn't learn this in school, I don't care. I'm convinced like there's something here. And so I went to the hospital board of directors at the county level, which those were all my patients, real nice guys and women, that just local community members, cotton farmers, and said, hey guys, here's what I'm learning. It's pretty cool because people are getting well. But the caveat on this deal is if someone wants to do the chronic disease reversal way, 1 hour minimum. Really 2 hours would be best, but minimum, I need 1 hour appointment times, not 7 minutes. And so I just told them that I wouldn't advertise, I wouldn't promote, hey, come reverse your disease. But if word got out, that coach that reverses diabetes, you go to Sunday school and you tell your Sunday school class, small town, word spreads. So if the word spreads and someone comes in for their 7-minute visit for diabetes and they say, hey, I heard you help coach. Could you help me do that? I told them, I said, I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to tell them on their way out, because they only have 7 minutes today, on their way out, make a follow-up appointment for 1 hour. And I told my receptionist at the front desk, if someone asks for a 1 hour, give it to them. So I felt like I needed to warn the board that if we get enough of these 1 hour visits going, obviously we're going back in the red. We've been in the black for 7 years. You got $1 million in the bank account, but eventually that's going to run out. I mean, it's just the way it is. So I warned them. And so I got to thinking, well, if we could find another doctor to come in here and basically run them through like cattle, like I was doing, and then I could do my nutritional stuff on the side. That was my plan. And they were in agreement. But I will say in that first meeting, one of the hospital board guys, he was like, so you're telling me, doc, people get well, like their cholesterol's good, they don't need on their statins, so therefore they don't come back for a blood test to check their liver and their cholesterol every 3 or 6 months or whatever to get the refills. And I said, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. That they won't need that because they'll be done with their statin. Yeah. And that was his only question. And I mean, you could see the wheels turning. And I mean, I totally get where they're coming from and nothing against them at all. I sat in those same meetings because there's a county clinic that had to do a healthcare district meeting every first Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. at the bank. And I was in on those meetings, and the financial guys from Lubbock, the management company, would bring this packet of financials and put it on and everybody'd look through it and talk about it. And I knew what they were thinking. It's all about the revenue. You got to balance that thing. It's got to make money. But, so that's where he went in his mind, and I knew that. But anyways, we found another doctor actually, and it was another small town, Shallow Water, north of Lubbock. And this doctor was burnt out from small town doctoring. The Friday night football game, house calls, people knocking on your door at night, that kind of thing. And I was like, hey, Chad, yeah, you just come in here, 8 to 5 clinic, Monday through Friday only, go home. They won't know where you live. You can still live up there. And he said, that's great. And I said, I'll still do the football games, the nursing home, the county jail, the juvenile detention center, and house calls, and my nutritional stuff. And then we'll tag team this thing. So that was our plan. But then the management company out of Lubbock, they advised the board that wouldn't work. 2 doctor salaries, because they didn't think they'd utilize the new doctor because I was established and people liked me. So they just wait around for me. And they didn't think financially it'd work. So they fired me.
Right. Isn't that so the way it goes? I mean,
yeah.
They're all going to want you. You're fired.
Right. So, yeah, it's a big shock. That was a Friday afternoon. They said be out by Monday morning. And so I called Jamie and just said, hey, it was a big shock to my system. I used to be a people pleaser, and I never even got a detention slip growing up. I was Mr. Follow the Rules pretty much. So it was like big shocker. But man, Jamie, I said, meet me at the clinic with the pickup. We got to load up. We're moving out. And she kind of went into this excitement mode of like, we just got released like a butterfly coming out of a cocoon.
Yes.
And we can go and be who God made us to be. Whatever he's showing you and calling us into this next chapter. I mean, she was like, she just believed and didn't go into fear mode. Of course, I went into how am I going to pay my bills? What's everybody going to think? Just all that stuff. But so I took about a week off and decided, yeah, we're going to open up our own thing. And so I opened up a a business checking account at the local bank. Got one of those little square card readers that plugs into the phone where you can swipe a card back in those days. I went to a used office store in Lubbock and bought a used office desk and a couple of chairs and a laptop, all in for about $500. And the Farm Bureau insurance lady in Post had an extra empty room in her insurance office. So I asked if I could rent that thing, little 10 by 10, tiny little office, didn't even have a window in it. And she said, yeah, $100 a month. So
Yes.
we just, and we were laying there in bed that night. I said, you know what we're learning? It's just the truth. And we have to name our clinic. And so I said, let's look up Latin for truth and Greek for truth. And Veritas is Latin for truth. So then we just looked up veritasmedical.com. It was available as a website, so we grabbed it. And Veritas Medical was born, and people just started coming. Word just got out, and people just started coming, and word of mouth spread, and we just grew and grew and grew. And when you spend 2 hours with a new patient and 1 hour for a follow-up, it doesn't take many people to fill you up and get a waiting list going because you're spending so much time. So as the waiting list grew over the months and first year, I hired a PA and then a nurse prac and then another nurse prac. And we just grew over the years. And at our peak, we were at 9 nurse practitioners at 4 locations in Lubbock, Odessa, San Angelo, and Abilene.
Well, so what happens in that case with the insurance? Did you're divorced from insurance at that point, right?
Insurance medicine obligates you to 7-minute visits as a primary care physician. There's no way to keep your doors open and not see 30, 40, or 50 a day. It's just the way it is. It's the reimbursement rates, the whole system is just set up. There's no way to do that. It's got to reverse disease. You got to be out of that system and do it different. And that's just the bottom line. I don't know of any way to do it in the system. And maybe there's some doctor out there that's figured it out, but you got to crank through it. So people need to understand it's a system. That's how doctors are trained. That's all they can do is treat a symptom. And these are symptoms. They're not diseases. They are absolutely symptoms of mitochondrial and microbiome dysfunction. If you heal your mitochondria, that's the carburetors in your cells that make cellular energy. Heal that mitochondria, get your carburetor tuned up so it's making better miles per gallon and less exhaust or free radicals. Then the inflammation goes down, that cell works. Or that's a neuron, it works. So you don't have brain fog or memory issues or migraines or a heart muscle cell or a white blood cell for your immune system or whatever cell. It's got to have energy and very little exhaust. That's called the mitochondria tune-up. And then the microbiome. The microbiome health is so intricately woven into our health. Those bugs in our gut communicate to our cells, and these bugs in our gut make certain products like serotonin for the brain, serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, all that's made in your gut by your microbes. The microbes make vitamin C and vitamin K and B vitamins. So they're a pharmacy for you. Your antimicrobial aminoglycans in your liver, those are natural antibiotics. But the microbes in the gut are a big part of that production. So anyways, you get the microbiome and the mitochondria going, the body fixes itself. And honestly, you don't even need a doctor for that. You need someone who has knowledge. And so that's where a couple of years ago, we launched Veritas Wellness, our wellness platform with health coaches, because it was so clear. These nurse practitioners are basically just teaching health coaching stuff because nurse pracs and doctors can't cure you, even holistic, integrative, natural ones, functional medicine. They can treat your symptoms with a green version of pharmaceutical-based treated symptom. I can give you berberine for your blood sugar, or I can give you metformin for your blood sugar, a natural one versus a prescription blood sugar. But still, you're treating a symptom of high sugar. We need to get to the root and fix the carburetor and bring your blood sugar down. You won't need berberine or metformin. So the health coaching wellness stuff can be done much more affordable. So you don't have to have an integrative doctor necessarily. Really, doctors should only be there to de-prescribe, to help you get off your meds, and then for acute illness, which honestly, even in acute illness, COVID, flu, measles, a well-tuned mitochondria, a really healthy, terrain internally will gobble those things up, no problem. But for people who haven't stewarded for 50 years and they're on their journey of getting healthier, they might need a little ivermectin. They may need a little budesonide inhaled steroid possibly. So, these doctors should really just be there kind of for emergency. You need a little extra help with COVID or measles, and then de-prescribing. that's it. The doctor's role is really pretty minimal. It's the health coach who's going to bring the truth and walk with you in that truth to really get the mitochondria and the microbiome stewarded.
So, Lynn, that leads me into your 4 pillars of wellness. The thing that I love about this is that it's a message of empowerment versus being a victim in the medical system. And so I'd like for you to lay that foundation of those 4 pillars so that we can empower folks moving forward.
Yeah. So real early, way back in 2012, when that doctor was teaching my nurse prac and then started teaching me, it was so clear that what he was doing, it wasn't the practice of medicine, which in the state of Texas, that means diagnosing and prescribing. He wasn't prescribing anything except natural things. So prescribing a pharmaceutical is a practice of medicine. And so early on, I really felt like this was from God telling me, hey, just teach the 4 pillars: nutrition, hydration, movement, and peace. You put those 4 things, you implement those 4 things, you steward those 4 things. The body takes that and fixes itself. Our body is a self-healing machine. It is amazing. And nobody even thinks twice about it when they get a paper cut. But if you knew the intricacies of the clotting cascade that gets initiated when there's tissue injury, it's incredible. That thing's on this razor edge. Because if you clot a little too much or too often or inappropriately, you die from blood clots. If you don't start clotting, when you're supposed to, when you get a cut, you can bleed out from a paper cut. It's just amazingly, on a razor's edge system. But it's like, man, this guy's just doing these basic things. And then those 4 things came in, and then I saw, yes, it's true. The people who can steward those 4 things, but it's so clear when we get back to the mitochondria. What does that carburetor need? And when that doctor said, Google every disease in the word inflammation, kind of went over this earlier, but where inflammation's rooted is at mitochondria. So when a standard American person is feeding, so think of your mitochondria in your car, your carburetor. It gets fuel, it gets air, and then spark plug. Those 3 things together in your carburetor, there's combustion that happens to make energy to turn the wheel so your car goes down the road. And that's exactly in the human body and our cells. There's fuel. It's going to be either glucose, which is sugar from carbs or sugar. That's one source, or fat. Your body can burn either one for fuel. But fuel, so that's from your nutrition, obviously, from your diet. Then oxygen from what you breathe. Well, that's movement. When you move, you're going to get a deeper breath. When you're sitting at a desk all day, especially if you're stressed, your flexor muscles engage. Just think of getting in the starting blocks to start a race, or you're about to punch somebody. These muscles in the neck, the biceps, these certain flexor muscles. Well, when you're sitting and flexor muscle engaged, you're not getting a deep belly breath. So when we move, stretch, bend, twist, just walk, just move, you're going to oxygenate better. And then spark plug is minerals. Well, our food is demineralized because of the farming techniques over the last 50 years. And so we need to get sea salt. We need to get trace mineral drops. We need to get regenerated food that's grown regeneratively, that's more mineralized into our diet. But that's it. Nutrition and movement, you're going to get that. Well, hydration too is so important. You're 70% water by weight, but by molecule, you're like 99% water. And a lot of this disease is just a chronic dehydration. I mean, think of a plum versus a prune. That cartilage in your knee, those discs in your vertebra, if you're dried up, that's where your body's going to suck from first, because they're going to pull water to preserve your organs, your vital organs, your liver, your kidney, your brain, your heart. And so a lot of this, we're just dehydrated down like a piece of beef jerky. Think of a big old steak cooked medium rare like it should be versus beef jerky sucked down to nothing. Same thing. So it's these simple things. What? Hydration? Yes, hydration. And the most important of all is peace. Because you can put in the perfect nutrition, the perfect exercise, the best minerals, sunshine. I didn't mention that, but there's photoreceptors in your carburetor and your mitochondria for sunlight particles, photons. It's awesome. But you can do all that. I tell people, my patients, it's like buying a $200,000 Lamborghini or Cadillac or whatever. And you put in what they tell you to, which is the high octane expensive gas, and get the best, highest, most expensive synthetic motor oil. And don't cheat on that oil change. Go every, 3,000, like they say, and get the best air filter. When they say change it, you change it. You don't skimp and skip that month and wait till next time. Like, get all the best organic, high dollar, inputs. You can get the best food, the best water, the best mint, everything. Spend the most money on all these inputs, but then get out on that highway and you put the pedal to the metal in that Cadillac and you're redlining it on the RPMs and you never shift that gear. That is what we're doing with our internal mitochondria when we are in chronic fight or flight mode. That chronic stress, chronic fight or flight, lack of contentment, ease, peace, we're redlining it. And you'll get a lot done with diet and movement and hydration. You can get a lot done usually, but you cannot exercise and eat your way out of a chronic stress situation. So that peace pillar is absolutely foundational for mitochondrial health and microbiome health. Because when you go fight or flight, you shut down stomach acid. That pH that should be a 1 to 2, it raises because you shut down your pumps when you're in fight or flight. And your pH gets up to 4 or 5 or 6. That kills your microbiome. You need that good pH for good microbiome health. So that peace pillar, essential.
That is truly what I came here to teach. I teach people how to soothe their parasympathetic nervous system with breathing exercises and just perspectives and ways to think about things. And it's everything. Like if you can come to peace in your body, if you can regulate your nervous system, then you have a little more leeway on your movement, on your hydration, all those things are very important. But if you have a good mindset and you're positive and happy and healthy, you can get along better than if you have all those things without the peace. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. And the people that come back are the non-responders who just won't get better with all these protocols. It's almost always lack of peace. It's that chronic stress. And even stress management, just like managing asthma and managing diabetes, people can try to manage their stress, and that's okay. Just like clearing that smoke out of your living room, most people die from smoke inhalation in a house fire. So I'm not saying don't clear the smoke or treat a symptom or manage a symptom. Do that at first, clear that smoke, but then keep going, go deeper, because just managing stress versus resolution, which that's a deeper and personal, more spiritual journey, but it goes to our mindset, which goes to that placebo effect your grandma was talking about. Our mind is powerful, super powerful. There's all kinds of studies we don't have time to get into on placebo effect. Even some where people thought they were taking chemo, and like 40% of this placebo group actually lost their hair and had vomiting every day. And it was a sugar pill. That's how powerful the mind is. So, it's huge. Both doing some stress management, but going deeper into these lies that we believe, because it really boils down to some core beliefs we have that just aren't true. And it keeps us in this state of fear, honestly, whether that be fear of lack of provision, fear of man, fear of whatever. So, it's a deep spiritual journey.
Well, I was thinking this morning that of course, we get what we focus on. What could be more fair than that? Individually, every human being, you get what you focus on. We've been hoodwinked into focusing on what we don't like, what we don't want, blaming, complaining, like literally on all the negative things that then create and bring about more and more negative things. So it is, and that is, that's part of what I'm doing in my life personally and with Soil Sisters, is trying to bring awareness to our ability to focus our way into better health, better land resources, better soil health, like all the things. It's just shifting the way that we're looking at it and understanding the power and the value of the way that we look at things and the energy with we approach these subjects. And so again, just having someone who has been through the schooling, who wears legitimately the white coat, to be able to help people understand this is really, it's time. So I'm loving this.
And I love that you're in Lubbock in West Texas doing this, and you have a thriving practice, because, this simple piece of thoughts become things, it's a little bit of a foreign concept in people's lives that, I moved out to Italy and then to California and then back home. And so I had a shift in perspective on our food system and on agriculture and all of these things. So it's easier for me to adopt these 4 pillars that you talk about. So how are y'all doing that in a way that is approachable and that people are latching onto it? Like, what is that kind of onboarding to this kind of process? Because we sound like a broken record talking to our father a lot about his neuropathy and how there's not another pill that's going to fix this thing. Like, the stuff that you need to do are the things that only you can do. We can't do them for you. So help us.
Yeah. Oh, it's a challenge for sure. We've been so just trained, number one, to go to your doctor and he knows it all and just do what he says. And a doctor's usually not going to talk about anything we're talking about. So it's hard. And if someone's in that mindset, especially an older generation, it can be near impossible to get them to think outside that box. And honestly, most people started coming to us years ago out of desperation. They were just simply desperate. They tried everything. They've been to all the specialists and, out of desperation, let's just try this alternative holistic guy. But then results oftentimes come and diseases go away and the word just spreads. So, I've got that 13 years of basically credibility from word of mouth testimony, 20,000 plus people. So, and out here in West Texas, y'all know, you get that solid reputation. And I'm not saying I'm anything. And what I tell everybody, the reason my podcast is called You're the Cure, we have a course called You're the Cure. It's not about Ben Edwards. I'm not that smart. I made it to med school just because I worked my tail off. I don't have a photographic memory. I'm not super crazy smart. And now I definitely know I got to get out of the way. But so onboarding, teach. And that's where, I can come in and try to connect some dots for people. And hopefully I've done a little bit of that here today to have their own personal aha moment, like acid reflux, that pH of 1 to 2 I talked about. Well, that actually signals this valve between the esophagus and stomach to clamp down. So all that acid stays where it's supposed to be. And there's a nice mucus layer in your stomach to protect the stomach so you don't feel that burn. But once that valve's open and it's coming up, you feel it up here. You're not never supposed to have it up here. You're going to feel it. Well, that signaling is dependent upon a pH of 1 to 2. When that pH rises to a 4 or 5, then that signaling is weak and this valve squeeze is weak and boom, here you go. So it's actually not enough stomach acid. But you do a little bit of that teaching, aha moments go off and hey, that made sense. Maybe I'll try that. So we rely on teaching. So I do that through the podcast, You're the Cure. And then just recently, we decided to kind of pull everything from 13 years of what we've learned and kind of curate that down into a more digestible, self-paced 9-module course. It's called You're the Cure also. And so it's just me teaching the why and connecting the dots. And then one of my health coaches coming in and teaching the how. Okay, well, then how do you get your stomach acid pumps back in? Well, you got to be at peace. You got to be well hydrated and well salted because those pumps need salt and energy. And you need some apple cider vinegar with your meal and maybe a little betaine. But anyways, teach. So this 9-module, dozens of videos, dozens of PDFs course is how we recommend people start who are brand new and don't know anything about anything in this realm. Start there. That'll be a really core education piece to lay that foundation. Then, if they need more support, we have a monthly membership where they can get on there and there's weekly Zooms live with the health coach. You can ask that health coach anything. You can do a one-on-one with the health coach if you want. You can get your blood panel checked through our program. If you have a Quest Labs anywhere near you, you can purchase a very reasonable, very thorough blood panel and get that interpreted by one of our navigators. And then there's a lot of courses and there's workout routines and recipes and meal plans and all the things. If you want to be all in and really get supported, then there's the monthly membership that does that. So that's kind of our 2 ways to onboard. And honestly, if someone wants to come see us as a medical clinic, we're so booked out and busy that we require you to actually go through that wellness stuff first, knowing by the time you get to the medical, if you even still need it, it'll be way easier. But most people don't need it. They cancel their medical appointment. Yeah. So instead of waiting on a 6-month wait list, go to the navigators in the wellness program, get the truth, because that's what the doctor's going to tell you anyways, and you're going to pay him way more money to tell you what the health coach would have told you. But yeah, so you're going to go through the wellness program anyways. If you're thinking about coming to Lubbock to be a patient, no. Get online, get on our website, veritaswellnessmember.com, sign up today and get with our navigators. It's super cheap, $29 a month, and you can learn how to get well, not need the doctor.
And this is fantastic because makes someone accountable for their own health.
Yes.
Because I feel like in the conventional system, we give all of our power away to somebody in a white coat, and we assume zero responsibility for what's happening.
I don't have to change. I'll just take a pill.
Yep.
Like,
I know. We're all human nature. Give me the easy button. I get it. Totally get it. But people got to understand that last place team thing. I mean, we're the sickest country in the world, dying younger than anybody. Infant mortality rate's the highest, adolescent mortality rate, young adult mortality rate, overall mortality rate. I mean, we are so sick because of that thing right there. We gave away. We lack knowledge, and then we're a victim. It's my genes. I have a whole course, an hour course on epigenetics, outside or above the genes, that will absolutely prove to anybody that it's not your genes. The genes are playing a part, but those genes are books on a bookshelf. They're closed and they're just sitting there. Somebody's got to tell the librarian to go to the third shelf, fourth book from the right, go to page 34, read paragraph 2, and I'll do what it says. That's called genetic expression. So for that BRCA gene, breast cancer gene, to be turned on, something's got to turn it on. And we know what the somethings are. It's those oxidative free radicals coming out of your carburetor that's not tuned up. It's the lack of sunshine. It's the lack of oxygenation. It's too much toxicity, not enough minerals in your food. It's all the diet and lifestyle stuff we're talking about. And it's clear in the literature, absolutely clear. Epigenetics rules over the genes. So we're in charge of our epigenetics. We get to say what kind of nutrition, hydration, movement, and peace we're going to have or not have. So we have power over this whole thing. Absolutely. But people don't know that. And that's the point of the course. You're the cure. So they learn the truth, and then they can walk in it and be set free.
Amen.
And I love that you mentioned that BRCA gene thing. When I was living in Marin County in California, went for my, annual wellness woman's exam, and was told I was, high risk for breast cancer, and they wanted to do other tests. And immediately upon getting this information, I was sent to an office to talk to someone about whether or not I would just want to go ahead and take my boobs off, just because I was at risk for that. Like, I'm just like, this escalated quickly. Like,
why
are you
extreme?
And just those words from those doctors, and then that whole process of go talk to this guy, get your thoughts going, that actually will be part of the process of turning that gene on. Mm-hmm. The fear, the worry, the apprehension, the anxiety of that will literally go turn that. And that was Harvard Mind Body Institute. And Caroline Leaf's book, Switch on Your Brain, she goes through all this. Harvard Mind Body Institute said 78 to 98% of all disease is rooted, the very first thing, in a thought.
Yes.
And there's other factors too, but the thinking, it's huge. So just thinking, oh no, you're already turning some stuff on.
Yeah. I had done an epigenetic podcast with someone about maybe 7 years ago, tracking how THC and CBD and these different cannabinoids played in our body, and how you could be, through a genetic test, you could find out, is this good for me? Do I metabolize it quickly? Do I do it slowly? All these different things. Mm-hmm. And so I was curious. I'm doing the podcast, so I went ahead and did the testing, and, it did all of everything. So I also found out during this that I had 2 of the 3 genes for dementia and Alzheimer's, and I had all of the genes for inflammation. But it was very empowering to me knowing, okay, I know this exists, and I also know that my lifestyle will make sure that I never turn those on. So
exactly. In
that moment, I became an 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night person.
Yep.
Just like I used to stay up late, not get a lot of sleep, and knowing like the most powerful thing that I could do for my brain health was sleep. I'm like, sold. Here I am, no, not going out, not staying out late. I need to get 9 hours of sleep. So I think a lot of times people are afraid of their genes. The information is all available, that we are in absolute control of our own destiny.
Yeah.
And that's important.
And if someone's just hearing this for the first time, I'd highly recommend, there's a Dr. Charles Day. He has a book called The Longevity Plan, and it was based off his observation in China, this village nicknamed the Longevity Village, where these folks live well into their hundreds on average, 110, 112, 115. And it's in a rural community, rice farmers mostly. But the interesting thing, he went to observe, what do they eat, how they move, what's their sleep pattern, all that stuff. But then he took it a step further, drew all their blood, and looked for all those genetic markers that predispose you to Alzheimer's and heart attack and stroke and cancer and all the genetic stuff. And they had all those same ratios of genetic predispositions, but they had none of those diseases, or very, very, very rare. And so the point of his book really is the whole epigenetic thing. So yeah, don't let those genes scare you. If you do get a test, just like you, and that empowered you and motivated you to go do the right things. And that's what we teach all the time is, hey, your ancestors, even just go back 100 years and then all prior, the genes don't change that fast. So they had all those same genes. They did not have these diseases. And it's because of these epigenetic influences. Dr. Weston Price in the 1920s, he's a dentist in Cleveland, Ohio, right when these chronic diseases started emerging. Like I mentioned, heart disease in 1912. Well, pretty much all of them, right, clumped around there and started escalating in the 1920s. He noticed it in his dental practice in Cleveland. So he went home and told his wife, hey, something's going on here. There's these new things called diseases, arthritis, high blood pressure, heart disease, malignancies. He said, we need to go travel the world and see, are there any people in the whole world that are still healthy, not starting to succumb to these diseases? And so that's what they did for the next 10 to 15 years. They traveled the world, lived with 14 different people groups, from Native Americans in Canada and Alaska down to the South Pacific Islands, down to the Amazon rainforest, eventually over to the British Isles, the Swiss Alps, into Africa and other places. 14 groups altogether. And he lived for about a year with each group and documented everything about their nutrition mainly. And he documented no disease in any of these people when they were eating their ancestral native diet. And, Eskimos in Alaska aren't eating the same thing African Plains are eating, or aren't eating what the Amazon. They're all different diets, but it was non-processed, real food, ancestral food. And they didn't have malignancy. They didn't have mental disease, even infectious disease. He noticed tuberculosis was ravaging these villages that were eating white flour and sugar. Whenever a Western missionary brought those two things, what Weston Price called modern food, white flour, white sugar, those villages would be ravaged by tuberculosis. And a village 10 miles down the road still eating ancestral, no, they weren't, tuberculosis wasn't an issue. But it was still around, guaranteed. It's not that it just didn't travel to that 10 miles down. No, it was around. They were just so strong and healthy, they didn't succumb to it.
I'm not a vibrational match. That's what I say.
There you go. You repel with your vibration.
I'm like, literally, my vibe is way too high for that. And don't.
It's so true. When you get into quantum energy medicine, I tell my patients, like, imagine two magnets coming together, but you flip it negative, and you repel. There's an energy there. When you realize your atoms are 99% empty space, because they are, between the protons and neutrons in your nucleus and these electrons that orbit the nucleus, it's 99. That's like a golf ball on the 50-yard line at Jones AT&T Stadium here at Tech, and mosquitoes way up at the top of the light post buzzing around. Your cells are made of physical molecules of nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, all that. And it's 99% empty of physical matter. They're not empty. There's frequencies at play that gets into quantum, and that's hard for Western-minded, especially certain, left brain intellectual Newtonian particle, got to see it, measure it. No, I mean, there's this whole other realm, and that's getting back to the placebo and as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And all that, it is true, 100%. So yeah, flip those vibrational frequencies and repel those germs and cancer too.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, Dr. Ben, is there anything that we didn't ask you that you think is important to round out this conversation before we wrap up?
I think we hit all the main points. So I just appreciate what y'all are doing. And I will just say the soil is so intricately related. And that's why I love regenerative ag and folks in that space, because if we can get this soil regenerated, get the food grown and the cow, everything, man, it makes my job as a physician using food as medicine way easier. So thank you for what y'all are doing.
Well, Crystal and I talk a lot about this, about the food, the fake food, the nutrient density missing in our food. And so we were like, we needed someone like you to come in and fill in the gaps of all of that, because you went to school and you have the information and credentials that we don't. And sister, what did I cut you off? What were you about to say?
Well, just like we understanding the value of the gut biome, because that, that's your territory. I know that healthy soil has the same biome, has the same microbial communities as our healthy gut. And so just you helping people understand like the different portions that will help you get back to that, which one of them is the pH, having that pH of 1 to 2 in your stomach allows those bacteria to be in there and do what they need to do. It really is such a correlation. Healthy soil equal healthy humans, healthy plants, healthy animals, the glyphosate and the GMOs that are stripping out all the, killing the biology and chelating all the minerals. We have a rabbi here in town that we get our minerals from. And it is so, I just understand the building block. You start with the foundation, and that is the minerals and the biome, your gut biome. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is all soil talk that we are talking all the time. So, I know that you understand that part because I saw your interview on the Acres USA podcast. And I love that. That's what we're trying. That's the part of it that we just talk over and over and over about on this podcast with all these people. So yeah, I'm really happy that you were able to really give some detailed, but also clear information about what's happening in our body and how the mitochondria needs to be clear and clean to help us fuel our energy, and then to not have so much free radicals. And those things are important for people to understand. And you explaining it that way is easier than talking about, soil. So anyway, good for health.
Well, thank y'all. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you, Coach Coulter, for introducing us to Dr. Ben.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Now he's like Dr. Coulter, and we're running around calling him Coach, and everyone else is like Dr. Coulter. I was like, sorry.
Man, he got after it. When I went and gave a talk in Guthrie, Texas years ago, boy, howdy. He got after it. Started growing their own food there on campus and getting their beef there grass-fed, and just divorced themselves from the National Food Lunch Program. He's an amazing man. So shout out to Coach Coulter.
Yes, and we're going to have him on the podcast soon. So, awesome. We're going to dive into what he did there in Guthrie. Hopefully get other folks to do that in the state of Texas.
And share that it can happen. And that's so much of what this is. It's telling people what is possible. Because we sit in our own little room and we worry and ruminate on things in our heads, and we don't understand the magic that is truly available out in the world with our own focus and opening up ourselves to learn things that are going to help us in way easier ways than we've been taught so far. So,
yes, absolutely.
All right, y'all. We're going to wrap it here. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank y'all.
Connect with the Soil Sisters at txsoilsisters.co. Submit questions, guest or show ideas, and sponsorship inquiries. The Soil Sisters podcast was created and produced by Joanna Nuding. Editing and sound design are in the capable hands of the PodConnects Podcast Network.